Hello and welcome to the Claret Blue podcast. I'm your host, Dan Rolinson, and I'm joined here this afternoon by John Townley to discuss all things Aston Villa. John, how are you, mate?
Yeah, doing all right, thank you, Dan. Villa's back this weekend. Finally, it feels like it's forever in his international breaks. But doing well, thank you. Did a piece the other day about the kind of stipulations of Villa getting into the top 4, top 5. And that's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of infused me again, if that makes sense. Looking at, if we beat Wolves, then it's 4 games to win. And, you look at it. I mean, we'll get on to it, but that's at the forefront of my mind. But yeah, no, doing well, thank you. Are you?
Yeah, not bad. I bought a new beard trimmer over the weekend and I used it this morning, and I fear I've gone, especially on camera, it looks a little bit shorter than I normally go for.
I was going to say this. Not in a bad way. Like it looks clean. It looks fresh. Like now that you've said it, it looks. I'm like, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, it's a little bit shorter.
I wasn't sure what it was.
A little bit shorter than I normally go for, so I think it makes my face look a little bit more round. So, not best pleased with the setting I've put it on, but I'll come to learn the best way to use this thing.
Good.
Speaking of international breaks, before we get into Villa stuff specifically, let's touch on the England game very quickly. I don't know how interesting this is to people or not. I'm not a massive England match watcher, to be honest with you. I saw bits and pieces of the game on Saturday night, I think it was. Friendly, I mean, if it's a proper qualifier or tournament, I'm all for it, but friendlies I'm not really that bothered about. But obviously there's 2 Aston Villa players involved, and that's where I want to talk about. What did you make of Ezri Konsa first of all? 70 minutes or so I think it was for him. How did you feel he got on?
I thought it was outstanding. It was a baptism of fire in the sense that he's playing against Vinicius and Rodrigo, and I put something outside. I don't think there's many harder tasks because, especially as a right back, who is the best left winger in the world? Probably Mbappe. And then it's probably Vinicius. So, yeah, superb from Konsa. I don't think he was beaten once. He was very mature. On the ball, he was excellent as well. Southgate, I don't know if people kind of hang on Southgate's words anymore, but he said that was the kind of thing that, I don't know about surprise him most, but impressed him most was how he used the ball, how he kept it. Konsa and Gordon both said after the game, like Villa, England controlled the game, and they deserve to win and stuff, which I get in terms of, they controlled it, but I saw a really good post. I don't know where it was from him, but I think it was from the BBC or something, like a fan post saying England, the best team at playing as if they're 1-0 up when they're 1-0 down, because they have ultimate control and, it's all very safe, very secure. But there's no creativity. And there was some people criticising Watkins after the game, and a lot of kind of media channels giving him a 5 out of 10 and stuff like that. But he had no service. What is he supposed to do? I actually thought he made some good runs. And the one chance that he did have was obviously an excellent tackle by, I don't know the chap's name actually. But yeah, I thought Konsa was immense. He was probably my man of the match, to be honest, because there wasn't many England players who really did much and showed the best ability, but Konsa did for me. It's difficult because these are friendlies, but also friendlies in the final 2 months of the season when no one wants to get injured. And I understand there are some players playing for their spots and whatnot, but it's hard when the main bulk of the team are kind of just going through the gears. There's really nothing about the game. There's no jeopardy or anything like that. So, Konsa just proved what Villa fans, have known all along. But this was a massive test for him, to be fair, coming on against Vinicius and Rodrigo, but he did really, really well. Passed the test in, flying colours, I suppose you'd say.
It's interesting that you mentioned Watkins in that conversation, because I wanted to mention him as well. There was a question, actually, obviously this is our Q&A show, so one of the questions was about England from JS. So it's not really a question. They just say, Watkins getting 0 service is actually ridiculous. Now, one of the things I saw online after this was this player and Watkins should be nowhere near an England side that wants to win a tournament. From fans who don't obviously watch Ollie Watkins week in, week out, but regardless of whether they watch him or not, for him to have the most goal contributions of an English player in the league this season, to not be involved with the national side just because he had a bad game against Brazil. Yeah, if you're not going to get service, you're not going to get any striker. Harry Kane gets 20-odd touches like Watkins does in that exact same scenario. So to judge Watkins on that, if you're a non-Aston Villa fan and you're neutral in the situation, is wild.
I'm a bit worried for him because I get the feeling that Southgate is very much that kind of guy who would not judge club form.
Do you reckon it'll be Tony for the next one?
Tony should, I'm pretty certain he'll start against Belgium and he'll probably score a hat-trick. But I just think, I've said it before, Watkins is my player of the season so far in the Premier League. because he's been so good and made such a difference to our team. And his numbers are just incredible. Well, they're the best, aren't they? But I feel like Southgate will judge players on what they do for England much more than what they would do for their club, if that makes sense. Like, it's hard enough for a Villa player to get a call up, let alone, play a game. And then when they do, if they aren't giving any service, Southgate, I think, would just almost critique that. So, and I think, the big thing that goes for Tony is his penalties, because he doesn't miss many, or I think he's missed like one or something in his career. So, that kind of works in his favour. And it's a 23-man squad as well. It's not 26 like the Euros was in like the kind of the COVID era. So, it's kind of, I'm, confident Watkins will get in the team, but, it's not kind of a cut and dry thing. I mean, if it was up to us, obviously he'd be probably the second guy on the team sheet after Kane. But
after Konsa.
But I was going to say, actually, just kind of to flip that, Konsa would absolutely be in my team, because he's just shown how versatile he is. We know that Emery plays with the kind of, Konsa as a right back to be more defensive and to play as a third centre back. But then you've got Cash or Kessler-Hayden, if Cash is injured, to be that more offensive player. So two different profiles, and Konsa can be that to a Kyle Walker, for example. Like Walker's recovery speed is very good, so he can do the kind of defensive stuff. And Walker will start in the Euros unless he's injured. But Konsa for me, versatility. If England winning a game and you need to shut it down or play in a certain way, Konsa's your man, because he just makes defending look effortless. And he's just done it against one of the best players in the world. So Konsa and Watkins are both on the plane for me. But hopefully, I think it's probably based on the next 2 months of the season as well for Watkins, which it shouldn't be, but I think that's just how Southgate will be thinking.
There was a couple more England bits, but I'm going to say those for the later in the show, although it doesn't make sense to do them now. I just don't want it to be too England heavy at the beginning of an Aston Villa podcast. So I'm going to move on to an Aston Villa question from David, who this was sent from his 10-year-old son, James. My question is related to the podcast where John was saying it will be hard for us to challenge any higher than top 4 because of the likes of Arsenal, Man City and Liverpool usually claiming the top 3 spots. So he asks, if we hadn't had the long-term injuries this season, do you think we actually could have challenged for a higher place?
Yeah, I put this in an article a few weeks ago saying that Villa would probably be still, pretty much hanging on to a title race without some key injuries to Kamara and Torres. We'd probably be, I think, probably 2 or 3 wins actually better off than where we are now. So we would be in a better position. But when I said what I said on, I think it was the last week with Matt, that in that podcast, that I said, is this as good as it gets? I didn't mean to be, horrible. I meant, second place and fourth place, even fifth place. It's still the same reward of Champions League. The next step up from qualifying for the Champions League is winning the league in terms of the reward that you get. I know there's obviously a few extra millions if you finish higher in the league, but the point was more, Champions League is probably our ceiling for now. Maybe we can win the league in a few years. I don't know. But that was the kind of the main point. And we can still improve. And I think, to be honest, we have to keep improving because other teams will keep improving. So we absolutely need to do that. We can't stand still. That was more about the, Champions League for Villa is kind of the ultimate goal of the owners as well. If we're being realistic, So can we continue to do that? And I did kind of going into what I've done now, but another piece that, talking about Villa's revenue, how, off the pitch Villa need to improve, and they are, because you've got the deals with Ataros, Adidas, Betano, all of those things. It needs to kind of keep it with Villa on the pitch, and that will enable Emery to have the tools to sustainably keep us where we are now. That's very, very important, because finishing above 3 or at least 2 of the top 6 every season is going to be difficult, even though Chelsea are a bit of a laughing stock at the moment, and Man United are going through changes. Clubs go through cycles, and we need to just remain where we are for the next few years, to sustainably do it, and that is the goal. So.
Yeah, you're right about being a couple of wins better off, and that sounds like such a small thing. Just let's say 2 more wins better off than we are now. That'll put us onto 62 points, with Man City on 63 and Liverpool and Arsenal on 64, to be within a win, in theory, of going top of the league on game week 29, 30 would be unbelievable. Of course it would be. But again, just that thing of looking over our shoulder a little bit. If we were on 62 points, you're already kind of saying Villa should be all right for the top 5. Would you be wrapped up for the top 4 pretty much already by now? We'd be 9 points clear of 5th. Whether we would be good enough to have sustained a title challenge, obviously it's difficult to say, but if Pau Torres and Kamara, of those 2, don't get injured around Christmas time, we've said before, I think we'd have beat Sheffield United. I think we'd have beat Man United at least once. Though even those two changes would have changed the league table. So,
and that's why it feels so not stressful. But going into this, I think if we weren't to achieve what we want to achieve this season, there's so much that has gone against us. That's why it was so frustrating, because we know that we're better than Man United. We know I think we're better than Tottenham. I do rate Tottenham highly, but as I say, without injuries, we'd be ahead of them even more than what we are at the moment. So, it is very frustrating that those things have happened. And as I say, it's don't know about like a minor miracle, but it's it's testament to the job Unai Emery has done. But yeah, hopefully we can continue to move on without any more issues, because what have we got? 9 games left. It's still a lot of football to play.
Right, John, you've mentioned a couple of times throughout this podcast about pieces you've written this week, and one that we've been asked about a lot is the Leon Bailey piece. So let's talk about that. And I don't want this to kind of take over the show. So if you're somebody watching this who's of the opinion that this is a bit of a non-story, or you don't really care about the explanation behind this piece, you can skip to 18 minutes, 42 seconds to get on with the rest of the Aston Villa Q&A. But this is something that people asked about, John. We are doing a Q&A episode, and this is something that came up, and I didn't want to avoid it or bury our heads in the sand or anything. So the bulk of the question that has been asked is, why, John? Why did you cover this story?
Yeah, so I obviously understand this story's had a reaction. I don't check my notifications all too often. I probably should do more than what I have been. And I'll always say my DMs are always open if people want to talk, chat about different things. Absolutely fine. We're not hiding anything. So, just as a start. So I've reported quotes from Leon Bailey. It's my job to report what people say and what they do, whether it's positive or negative. I interview people, I speak to people, and then I will publish quotes, or I will source those quotes from elsewhere, wherever they may be. And you'll see that I cover like almost everything that a Villa player will say in the media. Again, it's part of my job description to do so. I need to bring fans towards the club and what is being said, what is the reaction to different things, what a player is saying. That's obviously very important. And quotes are black and white. This is what Leon Bailey has said in a podcast. I can't swerve stories, even if me as a fan, I wouldn't want to hear or read. And I'm not even kind of just specifically talking about Bailey's story. There's plenty of stories that I've covered that are negative, that I don't like associated to Aston Villa or football in general. But I have to cover them because they will be in the Metro, in the Mail, in Sky, in different places. As I say, it's my job to report on what players say, and I have to follow what editors ask me to do. Again, I have bosses. I don't have complete freedom over what I can do. I have obviously a great degree of freedom, and that's why I love the job that I do. But yeah, of course, I have to do certain things, headlines and stuff, and a lot of stuff can be out of my control sometimes. I've also been told that some people think that I've made up quotes in this story, which again is completely untrue. I've worked very hard to be in this position, and I will continue to work very hard to give the best coverage that we can. And I wouldn't be so stupid to, not double check a source, for example, let alone make up something which, somebody has said.
Yeah, we had a question on the Q&A saying, why does John feel like he needs to derail the season by making up scenarios? And it's like, well, hang on a minute. Like, I replied to that tweet. I didn't really want to bring it to the podcast because we've loads of other things to talk about. But it's, of course, you're not going to make up the quotes. This isn't a written interview. This wasn't in the mix zone at a football ground and you've misinterpreted something or it was mistranslated. You can go and watch Leon Bailey say the things he said. You type those up. You publish a story. There's no interference. There's no making of all that. That's such a wild accusation to say that John is lying or you're trying to derail. And I'm laughing about it because it is a serious thing and we want to be open and honest about it. But to suggest that you might have lied is something that obviously I cannot entertain. Just in regards to it being too negative and that kind of thing, to me, I agree. Quotes are black and white. Whether they're positive or negative is how you interpret them. To report them is objective. This person said it. This is what it was. There's no kind of bias towards that either way. Could you have maybe framed things differently? You mentioned headlines, not necessarily done by yourself. That isn't specifically on you, but maybe the tweet you did, or could you have pulled out a different quote in the tweet rather than picking the negative one? Could you have picked a more positive one and then said he also discusses a Big Six club? Could you have written a wider opinion piece that, well, Leon Bailey is at a Big Six club. Like, could you have done things differently, do you think?
Well, what I would say is, again, I have to cover what people say. So in terms of the quotes that you mentioned there, then I have to cover those quotes. Again, I'm not inferring anything in the piece. Obviously, that would be I don't know, I'd be spinning angles and stuff if I was inferring that different things were happening. It was kind of straight down the line here is what Leon Bailey has said. The chap asked something along the lines of this other Phoenix Academy player has joined Chelsea. What would you say to Chelsea? And again, I can't avoid those quotes. But you are right, Dan. Yeah, I could possibly have done an opinion piece saying that Bailey's at the top 6 club right now, as you mentioned. Villa can fulfill his ambitions, etc., as they are doing. And again, the piece itself doesn't infer that Bailey doesn't believe that. I'm just reporting black and white. Here is what he said in a podcast. But I've done opinions on Leon Bailey before. He's having an exceptional season. I don't need to talk about that. I think kind of anyone who listens to the podcast will understand that I've lauded him and every Villa player as well. As I said earlier, Ollie Watkins is my Premier League player of the season. Unai Emery is manager of the year. Villa would be in a title race without a few injuries. So I'm very positive, in terms of how I cover the club, because Villa are pretty good. Even if I wasn't a Villa fan, it would be very hard for me to be not positive. I regret if that's caused any upset, but hopefully we've explained the situation there. Again, please do speak to me on my DMs and whatever. I'm completely open to all of this stuff. At the end of the day, we're Villa fans as well. We only want what's best for the club, and hopefully people will understand that we cover the club very positively. And you'll see that in terms of what we do on the podcast, what we say, our opinions about where the team is going.
It's funny you mentioned other opinion pieces, because just before we started, I wanted to get this story up in front of me, and I thought the quickest way to find it would be to search John Townley, Leon Bailey on Google, and the top result was, I wouldn't swap Leon Bailey for 100 million Bukayo Saka, an opinion piece that you wrote a few weeks ago after saying that line on the podcast. So, of course, everyone just going, it's negative, John. John's always negative about the club. It's like, well, he's not. That's just simply untrue. There is plenty of positive things out there. You get this kind of tag in the YouTube comments of, negative Townley again. And that's in the sense of, when we do a score prediction, I might say 3-0 Villa, and you might say 1-1. And that is more negative than my approach to it. But in terms of negative towards the club, is that we're fourth. How can you be negative? It's not an agenda or anything like that. As you said, Emery, manager of the year, Watkins, player of the year. Like, we big up for that all the time. So just to kind of say you are negative, full stop, is a disservice to what you do.
Absolutely happy to discuss whatever we produce, whatever we say. I'll always back up my opinions, and I'll also back up the work that we have to cover, because as I said, my role as a journalist over a Villa fan, because we're not a fan blog, we are a newspaper. I have to cover certain things, and again, regret if there's upset being caused, but it's the way that we do cover the club is very positive, because there's plenty of positive things to talk about in the first place.
Right, John, let's move on with the rest of the show, and plenty of Aston Villa questions to get stuck into. First of all, from Mastro, who says, will the new sponsorship, this is Batano, who was linked over the weekend, be announced before the end of June and go towards our FFP, meaning we don't have to sell a big player? Now, my gut reaction to this is it's next season's sponsorship, so it's next season's accounts. Even if it's announced this side of the accounts closing, it'll go into next year's money rather than this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't think anything that Villa do in terms of Batano, Adidas will impact summer plans. Obviously, the club released their accounts not long ago, nearly £120 million of losses. But again, I spoke about it in a piece. You'll find it in my author profile on Birmingham Live, kind of just breaking down, well, actually, this is the strategic plan. This isn't a massive cause for concern, actually, even though UEFA claim that it's the highest in Europe. But what I'm trying to say is there's a plan. Batano is £40 million over 2 years. Adidas, I don't have the figures, but it's going to obviously be a lot more lucrative than Castor, and it's a long-term partnership as well. As I say, Ataros as well, funding different things. So there's plenty to look at to suggest that Villa have this under control, the PSR FFP situation. Whether that means that Villa will have to sell a player or not in the summer, again, we'll find out. I've said before that Villa are in a very good position, therefore our players are good. Therefore, other teams may think that they'd like to sign some of our players. They may bid for players, and Villa aren't necessarily in a position to just say no to every offer. Every player has a price, but Villa have a good they've got a degree of control over it, or they have control over their players' future. Because they have everyone on long-term deals. I was looking at the contract situations of each player, and it's not until about 2026 or 27 that one of our kind of big names is out of contract. So, if any player leaves, it's for big money, and that's the situation that would help the PSR situation. Where we are now. But as I say, we don't know if that's the situation or what's going to happen yet. But just on Betano, it's going to be a big deal for Villa and very lucrative. So, positive news there.
Next question came from Adam, who says, the audio-only podcast on the Champions League was informative. Thank you, Adam. But didn't cover this question that had been asked previously. Will a team finish in 5th, assuming that England get that extra place, get direct entry straight into the group stage, or have to play a qualifying round? So, very quickly, without researching this, because I'm pretty sure this is correct. Firstly, it's not a group stage, it's a league phase. Everyone goes into the same big collection of teams together. There was no qualifying playoff round, whether you finish 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd or 1st in the Premier League. Everyone is part of that 36-team group stage league phase thing that I talked about. This was part of our audio-only show that I did called Aston Villa Explained, where I wouldn't be able to talk about it properly on a podcast like this because I'd be editing it so much, because I basically had to write script and read through the information and all the numbers and stuff. So it was audio only, alongside Matt Kendrick's audio only show Villa Voice Notes, which is an unedited ramble of consciousness of anything. The most recent one was about how annoying it was to get back up from West Ham on the train, which was like, that was it, but it was thoroughly entertaining for some reason. They won't be on YouTube like this podcast, but it's on the same feed as all our other content. So if you are listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Acast, whatever platform it is, the AVFC Explained and Kendrick's Villa Voice Notes will be on there, so you can catch up with those. But that's right, isn't it, John? There's no extra qualifying preliminary round for the new format of the Champions League. It's everyone goes into that big league next year.
Yeah, automatic qualification. Straight to the big league. 8 games in the big league. It's going to be 2 teams from each pot. So there's 4 pots. Villa will be, if they qualify, likely in pot 4. Who cares? So those pots are based on coefficients. So, for example, if Tottenham qualify in 5th, then they would probably be in like pot 3 or 2, I suppose, because they've been in Europe for quite a long time. So we'll be probably pot 4. So we'll play 2 teams from our pot, so 2 weaker teams, then pot 3, pot 2, pot 1. I presume you've mentioned these different things, Dan, and we'll be playing home and away, not twice against each team, but just once. So we could be playing Real Madrid away and then Bayern Munich at home, because it'll be home and away from pot 1, home and away from pot 2, But lots of games. Going to be a bit big kind of fixture schedule. But bring it on. It's next season, if we were to qualify for the Champions League, just feels to me like let's just go for it. Like, this is what we've worked so hard to get and what we could have only dreamed of last year, let alone when we were slogging it out in the Championship against Burton Albion, like kind of like a dream situation. So let's just take it on. I know there are lots been said about like Newcastle and whatever. Listen to Dan's voice notes. Which way am I? That way. I can't do it now.
just like you come in, basically. Couldn't see your fingers. Right, next question from JJ, not Jacob Ramsey, I assume, says, what would be a reasonable expectation for next season? I personally see regression, like Newcastle on the cards. Negative, JJ. How dare you come onto this podcast being negative? No, that's a fair point to make. It's a fair possibility. Yes, we are burdened by the extra games, as Newcastle were, and we'll probably finish 8th, 9th in the Premier League this year and be out of Europe altogether, possibly. First of all, without kind of delving too much into predicting the future, could you see that kind of drop-off happening to Villa if they were to get in the Champions League next year?
No, I just can't envisage us being worse than 8 of the teams because we're so good. Do you know what I mean? Just again, unless we have injuries. I know Newcastle have had some bad ones as well to key players, i.e. Pope. Tonali was a ban, so that doesn't really count. So, if Villa were to lose Martinez and were to lose McGinn or Louise for most of the season, then there'd probably be a drop-off. And that's why I think Newcastle, as I kind of mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of criticism about them, but, I wouldn't listen to it too much if I was a Newcastle fan, and I don't think they do. But I guess what you could flip it as is, I understand JJ's question about regression, in terms of finishing, maybe outside of Europe, if, that would probably be regression. But I would term it as, well, if Villa play in the Champions League 8 games, which is a lot of games, and we're all loving life, going into the Bernabeu or something, we might even get through, or we might even play the round of 16 game, and that'll be just a brilliant event against, I don't know.
You're saying we can't win the Champions League, John? Can't go all the way?
Yeah, no, of course we can. But I meant that
was so unconvincing.
yeah. But if we play that round of 16, which is, the teams who finished 9th to 24th or 5th, not totally sure, but I don't know, a random team, PSG. So let's say we play PSG in that round of 16. That's just like, we played 8 games, we played a massive round of 16. Then who knows what happens there? Do you know what I mean? That for me that's the centre of the season, because it's just, that is what we've worked for. We're working for that. So if we were to finish 7th or 6th next year in the Premier League, but we had a fantastic time in the Champions League and we went to all these different places and we played these brilliant teams at Villa Park, that's just a brilliant season. Well, what football I think sometimes can be, like this season it feels quite, we're enjoying it, but it's quite stressful because we're going for something and we really want it, and if we don't get it, it'll be horrible. But next season I just want to kind of take a breath and just enjoy it.
You won't relax next season because it'll be, we need to be there again.
Yeah. But do you kind of get where I'm going at? I'm going to be more like, well, I'm just going to have to enjoy this, because last season we did so well to, again, I hope we finish in the Champions League, and this conversation's futile if not. But yeah, that's the kind of vibe I'm on, I suppose. Next year, if we can get Champions League this season, well, let's just enjoy it, because it's too short to worry about what's going to happen, and then if we don't get it, then all of a sudden we're back in the Conference League, and then people think that's regression, and I get it, but I don't really want to kind of talk about that stuff in a negative way, because if we get Champions League, then yeah, fantastic, that's the season, great. But yeah, I think top 6 finish in a Champions League campaign would be brilliant. Fantastic. We could then win Europa League the year after. But I think the Europa League also has 8 games, which again is pretty taxing.
It's all the same, yeah. That every European competition next year, even the Conference League, is this same big format.
So it's kind of puts you off qualifying for. No, sorry, that's wrong. It would be difficult to get through a Europa League campaign and juggle a Premier League campaign with Thursday to that sort of stuff. You kind of it'll be difficult for a lot of Premier League teams. Is what I'm trying to say. It won't just be Villa who will be struggling with 8 games in the Europe. It'll be other clubs as well. But I do get the point about we won't be able to spend loads. Will we have to sell? We don't know. Will our squad depth be massive? Will we have injuries? That sort of stuff. They're all question marks. But hopefully none of those things, negative things, happen, and we can just enjoy the season and attack it.
Let me put a theory to you. The Conference League that we're playing in now is obviously not to the standard that the Champions League will be. But again, you do play 2 crap teams, 2 slightly better teams, and then probably 4 great teams, in theory, how that system works next year. We've played 10 games in Europe this season so far, including the Hibs 2 legs, 6 group stage games, and then 2 legs against Ajax. 10 games. Well, end of March now. We played 10 games in Europe. We went out of both domestic cups early, and we're still 4th in the Premier League. So, yes, the Champions League may only be 8 games, or it could be 10 games if we get to the first knockout and then lose. Let's say we go one further, it's 12 games, right? We're getting into the quarters now of the Champions League. And it's only 10 games, only 12 games, which is what we've done so far with the Conference League. And we're expecting to get past Lille, so that's 2 more. The semi-final, that's 2 more, and then a final. So potentially 5 more games in Europe, which will be a bigger campaign that we will probably have in the Champions League. I know the standard is lesser, but is the theory to say, well, we're already competing with Europe very well and still doing well in the Premier League, because we've not found Europe easy, have we?
No.
The Hibs game was easy, but group games we've had some difficulties. Ajax away, it was a 0-0. Like, we haven't it's not been a cakewalk all the way through, and we've battered everyone 5-0 and rested players and gone, oh, this is just easy. We don't even need to think about it. So we've put effort into a European campaign, and we're 4th now. So what is this suggestion that, well, if we put effort into the Champions League, we'll be 8th? Why can't we do both?
No, I think, as I say, I think that would be the same for Newcastle. I don't think Newcastle will be 8th or 9th. I think they'd be in and around the top 6 if they kept the top players, if I'm being totally honest. So, yeah, I totally agree, Dan. Villa will be able to juggle both. I don't think that'll be an issue, again, unless there's more key injuries. But you say there has been this year. So it's a situation where Villa will basically replicate the amount of games. The only difference being that they're Champions League games and they will be more difficult. I think it will probably take more out on the players, just because it's, God, if you're playing Bayern at home or Real Madrid at home, like the Man City and Arsenal games that we played, I know they were kind of back to back, but it took out so much, almost like we almost took like a month to recover from the high and the, mentally it was like, oh my God, like what's going on here? Are we going to win the league? So I just think that we will probably put so much into those Champions League games, and those Premier League games they'll still be absolutely relevant when we come to them, but I don't know how to put it. For example, when we played Legia away and Chelsea away, it felt like Legia was like, all right, let's get this Legia game done. Hopefully we can win it. And then we got Chelsea away. But I feel like that might change ever so slightly in the Champions League. Just, a thought. We're going to go to Bayern Munich. And who we got the weekend? Brentford. All right, okay, but let's just do Bayern Munich. I just feel like there might be a bit of a switch because it's going to be like, well, we tried so hard last season to get into the Champions League. We're going to give everything to that. And the Premier League, we'll absolutely do our best, and Emery won't let us slip up or anything like that, or get lax with it. But I just think for the first half of the season, when we're in that kind of Champions League, we're going to give so much to that, I think, because we worked so hard to get there. And then maybe the second half of the campaign, we can, really focus on the Premier League then. I'm not saying we won't focus on the Premier League. I don't want that to kind of get twisted, but I think you kind of understand where I'm getting at. I feel like we're always going to be favourites to get through that group. But playing the Champions League matches, it's just like I know we are not there yet at all, but that would be like a massive focus for me. Again, the Premier League games are massively important, but Champions League, like, wow, this is what we've wanted. And
it would almost be like a season of two halves, wouldn't it? Because let's say Villa do go out in that league phase system of the Champions League next year, which again, that's not being negative. That it's a very real possibility. As much as I said that you played two crap teams, those two crap teams will be far better than anything
going to be good
played in the Conference League. Yeah, exactly. Let's say we go out after those 8 Champions League games. You kind of go, well, that's the first half of the season. We can still have a very good second half Premier League campaign now, and without the pressures of Europe, and get into the Europa League or even to the Champions League again. So I've got no concerns really about juggling both. And as we say a million times, there's no better manager than Unai Emery to juggle those tasks.
Yeah, exactly. I can see us being in a good position come January next season. And then it will be like, well, are we going to be in the Champions League after these 8 brilliant games or not? We don't know. Maybe we'll play around 16 and we might win or lose. Again, not sure. But if we do, then we'll have, 15 games of the season remaining, and we're already in the top 6, top 7, sound. That's a great position to be in.
Next question is from the Dr. Mills, who says, we should concentrate on the remaining games and push Villa to the top 4 and the Europa Conference League final. FFP can wait until the summer. I feel fans are far too focused elsewhere rather than the real prize. Don't you agree? We've kind of talked about this in different answers, I suppose. There's a lot of concern, I guess, about FFP or PSR and Villa's. Do they have to sell players and all this kind of thing? And I feel like we do speak about that probably every week, and it's an ever-changing situation that we've said before. We don't really know. Like, we will know in the summer if we get a bid for a big player and we go, okay, that's quite a lot of money. We will accept that. Okay, like again, I trust the guys at Villa to rebuild after that. But we do kind of have to take stock a little bit and go, well, the focus is on this 10-game period in the Premier League and this, well, for now, 2-game period in the Europa Conference League. Let's put all of our focus and attention onto that. And what comes after that will come after that.
Yeah, precisely. Basically what we've mentioned there. And it's a good question for sure, because it's certainly something that I think a lot of people are thinking about as well. But yeah, in terms of FFP, singular, Villa had a plan. Their plan meant that they're going to have to lose a lot of money to get where they are now. That's fine by me, because this is the dream, to be in the Champions League, and we're doing it in a way that isn't jeopardising the club moving forward. I think that's the key thing. We have fantastic owners who are already putting big deals together to ensure that FFP is kind of in balance. We're compliant, etc. And then the flip side to that is that, it does feel like we are sometimes losing focus of what a fantastic season it is, because we're going for a big goal. And that's kind of my point about next season. If we were to get Champions League, I'll probably, take that season as like as I just said, like what will be will be. Like this is just,
there's a little bit of that. There's a phrase for it, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head. Like when you've been working for something for so long, and then you finally achieve it, and you kind of think, what now? I'll try and Google it, but like for me, you spend so much time trying to buy a house, and then you buy it, and you kind of go, "Oh, I've got it now." Like, what am I aiming? What am I aiming for next? Like we've put so much effort to get into Europe. Now we're here. We're putting so much effort to get in the Champions League, and then we'll get there, and it's kind of like, oh, what do we do now? Do you know what I mean?
Enjoy it. That's that's my point. It's like now once we get there, it's like, okay, well, let's just let's just take this. Like, this is going to be fantastic, and it's even better than what Newcastle. I know Newcastle had some, they went to the San Siro, they went to Dortmund, they went to PSG, but that's how many games did they play? 6 games, I think. We'll have 8. We'll have more games than Newcastle. It's going to be so. If we were to get it, I keep giving that caveat, but it's just going to be a season to remember whatever happens because of what we're going to do, where we're going to go, who we're going to bring to Villa Park if we get Champions League, and that for me is fantastic. Sometimes in football you just need to kind of forget about all of the money involved, all the other stuff that goes around, and just remember that okay, we're playing this team tonight or this team next week. It's going to be memorable. This is something that you'll look back on in maybe 30 years. As the time Villa return to the top table of European football. And if we finish 6th that season and get Europa League, so be it. We're still in Europe, still got an amazing manager, fantastic owners. There's no better position that the club could be in. Do you know what I mean? I'm. This season just feels like absolutely. We are absolutely enjoying it, but it's like okay, we've got a big goal to go for next year. I want to win. Enjoy the ride in the Champions League. If we can get there, that'd be fantastic. Even if it's Europa League, then step up from where we were, I suppose.
Yeah, somebody in the comments will tell me the theory that I'm talking about because Googling you work so hard to get somewhere and then not sure what to do once you get there. Ironically, didn't find me any results. All right, let's move on. Ollie says, I'm not sure whether you guys can talk about this as it's a little Chris Heck related, which, yeah, fine. But I'm curious about whether there's any more information on the new badge. In particular, if a new badge is not unveiled before the new kit, would we revert to the shield or just keep the round one? Now, if the new badge is not unveiled before the new kit, that would be very, very surprising. That surely will. There's no way that does not happen, and they will not launch a new kit with the old badge if a new kit is coming. So the new badge will come before the new kit. You would think by the end of the season, over the summer, like this thing of it's coming soon keeps getting pushed back for whatever reason. But yeah, the club aren't going to release a new shirt with not the new badge. So the new badge kind of has to come. It's chicken and the egg, isn't it? The new badge has to come before the new kit comes.
Yeah, as of 11, there's no update on the crest. Again, I don't know when it's going to be. There was, obviously they'd hoped to have done something by now. But the club have stressed that they haven't had any contact from the FA regarding breaking heritage rules, etc. So whatever the delay is or why it's taking a period of time, they say it's not because of anything bad as such. The FAB, the Fan Advisory Board, was shown the crest, the one that was trademarked back in December, I believe. But yeah, the round badge will be thrown in the bin at the end of the season, like the day after the season, because they don't like it. And that won't be used going forward. And I'm obviously pretty certain that the new crest will be on the new kit. Obviously that would make sense. Again, if the current badge, the shield that we've been using this season, away from the kits, if that's being used, then clearly something's gone wrong. So
what a confusing situation we found ourselves in with all these different badges. And all right, let's move on. It's just Seb who says, how do you see us shaping up at the back against Wolves without Matty Cash, brackets assuming that he's done his hamstring? Do we know that for a fact? Yeah, he obviously went off injured for Poland.
Don't know. Haven't been told. We've obviously asked questions, but I haven't been told. I'm not going to say it's a specific thing because I don't know. But it appeared to be kind of muscular, the way that he pulled up.
Just holding the back of his thigh, wasn't it?
Thigh, hamstring, anything around the area. It might not be what people think. I don't know. It's obviously a situation that Villa could do without. As far as I know, he hasn't been recalled by Villa yet, which surprised me. I presumed he'd be kind of on the first plane back to Birmingham from Warsaw, but wherever they played, I think it was Warsaw. Yeah, they've got a game against Wales. Obviously, he's not going to be playing in that, I presume, because he's pulled something.
Well, that will tell us, won't it? If he does play in Poland's next fixture, there's nothing to worry about.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure he's ruled himself out anyway. But I don't know. We'll find out from Emery specifically on Friday in the press conference. But I don't know. Maybe he has plans to come back to Birmingham. Maybe he's just touched down. I'm not sure. We'll see how that situation develops. Other injury news would be that Ramsey, Villa are hopeful that he'd play against Wolves. But again, Emery's the man that will spill the beans on Friday. And it's only those two injuries at the moment that are kind of, I say only, we have Mings and Buendia out and Kamara, but those two it seems like
we've
always got 3 or 4 on the go, like a Duran, Carlos, all these guys. But for now it's only Ramsey and Cash, and Ramsey isn't far away. So
further updates on that on our Inside Bodymore show at the end of the week. We will do a Wolves preview and we'll know more then.
Basically. And I forgot I haven't actually answered the question yet. Carlos was training with Wesley, which was an interesting update.
I saw that. Yeah, that was like 2 worlds colliding, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I think probably Longley would play alongside Torres as a 2, Conte right back. Luka Dean would be my left back. That would be my back 4. I would have played Cash against Wolves because they are missing a few attackers, i.e. Neto, Hwang, Cunha, I think will be on the bench. But I think that allows us to be a bit more offensive. We're at home. We want to beat Wolves anyway, but going the other way, Neto and Hwang and Cunha, if they were playing as a 3, that would scare me because there's a lot of pace there, and therefore we'd probably have to be a bit more, streetwise in what we do when we do it. So, I'm happy with Constance playing it right back again. Longley, Torres, and Dean. That would be my 4.
Right, we're going to answer a couple of stupid questions now because we've done all our serious ones. So this is your time to switch off if you're not here for this kind of nonsense. But this is the part of the show that I've been looking forward to the most.
I go.
Before we get into the silly questions about Villa, here's something I saw this week and wanted to talk about. And this comes off the back of a question via Flip Flop, which is already a great start to this segment, isn't it? Flip Flop says, "Are you boys going to wade into the England kit debate? Personally, I think it's much to do about nothing, and the price of the kits is a far more important talking point." Is exactly how I was going to phrase it. Have you seen the flag stuff?
Of course I have, yeah. It's bloody politicians talking about it.
What do you make of this playful attempt on the England flag from Nike on the back of the collar? For anyone who lives under a rock, the England badge is like pinky purple rather than the St George's cross being white with a red cross.
Playful update.
Yeah, do you care? Are you in outrage over this?
No, I'm not. I'm not in outrage. I've bigger things to care about in my life, and I would probably advise people to listen to what Stan Collymore said about it actually on TalkSport on Friday at about 2:30. I was driving around and I was listening to what Stan was saying about it, and he kind of hit the nail on the head about what he was mentioning, that the St George's flag is rarely appeared on the England kit anyway. And in 2011-12, which I remember because I had the kit, there was red, green, blue, maybe another colour, little flags in the upper region of that shirt, and there was absolutely no fallout from that. So
I just a little fun factoid about that kit. Rob Warner designed it.
Did he?
It's Umbro, isn't it? It was Umbro. Yeah. So the one you're talking about, the back kind of panel.
I'd love to hear what
tiny little, tiny little crosses. Yeah.
And I like that
the red bit, but in different purple, green, blue. I think it's very minor, but that was. I think Rob said on Twitter that this current playful iteration from Nike is not. They didn't even say like this is because of diversity or whatever. It was just they've changed it. Umbro and Rob at the time said the reason they did it was for diversity, to show different colours, and that was the whole point. But you're going back, like you said, 10, 11, 12 years, people didn't care, people didn't bat an eyelid. Whereas now this is like a national talking point of how dare they ruin our flag, and you wouldn't see them doing that with other countries' flags. And it's like, as you said, I've got far more important things to worry about than the colour of the England badge on the back of an England shirt that I will not buy because it's 100 and odd quid to buy. 120 quid for kids, was it? I think 125 for adults or something like that. That's the problem. That's what we should be in outrage over.
It's so out of touch. Like, do you know how much money that is for a shirt? Like,
imagine you've got 2 kids and a wife, and you all want it because you've got summer barbecues over the tournament, and you want to wear the shirt and go and represent at the pub gardens and whatever else, beer gardens. We're talking 500-600 quid just in shirts. It's absolutely outrageous.
And I suppose like the little ones will want like the whole kit. I don't know how much that would cost. It's just, honestly, it's a joke. And politicians talking about the cross. Oh, come on. I don't listen to PM questions all the time, but surely there's bigger things. Well, there is bigger things to talk about.
Bigger things, yeah, exactly.
And try and sort out. I missed what Rob said about that, but that's kind of the perfect response to it, really. Should have got Rob on for that. It's like the perfect person to talk to.
Just on the back of an England one, let's get into these silly questions then from AVFC Vibes, who says, would Man United get relegated if they appointed Gareth Southgate as manager?
I can't believe that they'd appoint Southgate. And I'm probably more positive about Southgate than most people that I know, just because I think he's done a good job in terms of helping bring in...
Unite the nation.
Yeah, like as in like bringing the media together. People don't hate the England team anymore because they did for a long time. But I did say that after the World Cup, I think that was the kind of the time to leave. Like he's done his bit for me. England need the balance of what Southgate has done in terms of everything he's done off the pitch, fantastic. But then he's not a particularly good coach or tactician. I mean, he's better than me. he's in compared to the elite coaches in the world. I don't know if that's possible to get the balance between both. So if Southgate goes upstairs and you bring in, I don't know, would Graham Potter be up for it? I'm not sure. Eddie Howe, if he leaves Newcastle, that sort of thing. But I think it was the right time for Southgate to go at the end of the World Cup. I think if we got someone in who had a bit of a run at it before the Euros, I'd be much more positive than what I would be now.
Me too.
Man United point in Southgate. I don't see how that's even. Maybe it is true, and if it is, then Jim Ratcliffe is clearly an issue already. I don't see why you would appoint him.
Absolutely off the top of my head, if you had to rank, I always do this, don't we? Where does Emery rank in the top Premier League managers? But if you had to put the list of the current 20 Premier League managers in a list, including Ten Hag at the moment, where does Southgate even come into that? Because he's proven at international level, but not so at club level, which is clearly a very different thing. So if we always say like Arteta, Emery, Klopp, Guardiola, etc., the top 4 or 5, you've got Postecoglou, Ten Hag.
No, I think it's easy if you work from the bottom upwards, to be honest.
Yeah. Is he around mid-level or?
Who have you got? You
got O'Neill and Iraola. Are they above?
They're better. Much better coaches and tacticians than Southgate. I'd probably put Southgate towards bottom 3, I suppose. Again, I'm not trying to slag the guy too much. In the Premier League, it's the best division in the world. You've got to be very good, very switched on tactically. And at least in the international level, I don't know if Southgate goes into games thinking you've got to win every game 1-0 in tournament football, maybe. And when he goes into club football, he's playing this like incredible fluid football. I doubt it from what we've seen, and I don't want to rule it out. But from what we've seen from England, I'd put him, I don't know. I'm not going to go through all of it. Possibly like 17th or something.
Right, on to Villa managers now, then from Robbie, who says least favourite Villa manager and why. There's been some crap ones over the years. Does anyone jump out immediately? There's a couple obvious shouts.
It's difficult because I don't tend to hold grudges against people in terms of I don't not like people just because they weren't a good manager, if that makes sense. Who do I think is the worst manager? I think it's probably an easy question. I don't know.
That was the question, wasn't it?
It was that the question. Sorry, did I go sinister with it?
Least favourite Villa manager. So you could have that as the worst manager rather than the worst person. Yeah.
I mean, Di Matteo weren't very good before that. I mean, Lambert, I thought, did an okay job for a period of time because he had no resources at all.
For a year or two, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but he had no resources whatsoever. So I think to keep us up for as long as he did was probably not even so bad. Bruce
towards the end.
Yeah, Bruce for me, again, I sound like I'm being ultra positive here, and I'm not. Bruce for me did, well. For what he had. We've
talked about Bruce before, haven't we? You and me.
I'm going to do a big piece about why Bruce is misunderstood. Who else did we have? We had Remy Gard, but I mean, Jesus, you could have Guardiola and we'd still go down.
Well, yes, Remy Gard was particularly terrible. McLeish,
of course,
probably the most obvious shout for obvious reasons. But again,
I don't remember it too well, though, so it's difficult to. I'd probably say Di Matteo because it's bad times again. Wasn't the easiest job in the world, but I have no connection with that at all.
Yeah, I expected better things from Di Matteo. I don't know why. It just felt like we'd go down to the Championship and do well, and we were awful. There's a couple of football ones and non-football ones. Where do I want to go with this? From Martin Larson, says, how often does John cut his hair?
How often John cut his hair? Well, I don't know. I tend to cut my own hair now because it's too expensive. Okay. I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to save my money here and there, but it's 20 plus quid for a haircut these days. Absolutely.
Is it? Wow.
Is it not?
I don't pay that much.
Well, the ones where I am is, it's too expensive, man. And then it's after a week, you think, okay, I probably need to get a cut again.
Okay. You're one of those.
So yeah, I don't like long hair, if that makes sense. I like to keep it short and well cut, shall I say. So yeah, after 5 weeks I get really frustrated and then I have to spend another 20 plus quid. What am I talking about? How often to do it? Can we just move on? I feel really anxious now whenever I'm in a press box and people are looking at me. I went home and my partner was saying that he cuts his own hair now. And then my brother realised, and I was just clowning me for it for like a period. So if he's watching, he's probably creasing. But
honestly, if what you've got there, obviously I can only really see the front and a bit of the sides. If
I haven't cut it
yourself, it looks decent.
I haven't cut it for a while. The back is probably a monstrosity.
If you're not cut it for a while, surely it'd be longer than that. That looks like it's been done like in the last week.
No, it's I don't know, probably a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. It's probably about every week, 2 weeks that I cut it, but it's free in it, so it's fine. It's not my
thing. Yeah, if you're doing every 10 days, 2 weeks, you were going to get it done for 20 quid. I could see why you'd like to save some money. I used to do like every 5 or 6 weeks, and mine's like 11 quid.
11 quid for a haircut?
Where I am, yeah.
That's good, that is. It depends what
I'm only getting like a very basic short back and sides. There's not really much you can do with my hair.
Yeah, I know, but that's the same as mine. Just keep it short on the sides and make sure it doesn't grow too much on the top.
We've got a non-Villa one and a Villa one. Which do you want to end the show with?
We go Villa first.
Okay, Villa first. AVSC Faithful says, when I say Villa one, it's still stupid. It just references football. If all 20 Premier League managers were in a Royal Rumble,
yeah, it's great.
Where would Unai Emery come?
What a question. I don't know. I think Emery's the kind of guy who would just, because he's so switched on and he's intelligent with his movement. I think he'd kind of just weave in and out, and he'd be like staying in the corners. He'd understand the danger, but he wouldn't get involved. So I think he'd finish quite high, but not because he's throwing Sean Dyche off the ropes and stuff. I feel like Dyche would go after Klopp. Do you know what I mean? It'd be that sort of thing.
I think Dyche is a good shout to go all the way, to be fair.
Yeah, no, for sure. But do you know what I mean? Yeah. They'd go for each other, and Emery would just be like, I'm not
picking his battles.
Yeah. I don't know. He'd kind of like curl into a ball, and then he'll jump up and he'll be like, I'm here, and like, this is my strategy. And then he'll probably get in like the top 10 or something because he's smart with it. Who would go out first? Probably David Moyes.
The final question of the show comes from Ben, who asks simply, what is your favourite midweek tea? And first of all, this opens up a conversation of, is it tea or dinner? John, you're a dinner man, I reckon.
Lunch, dinner, yeah. What is my favourite? Is in...
No, your favourite midweek kind of home-cooked dinner. Yeah. What would you be going for? Are you a dab hand in the kitchen?
Am I what?
A dab hand?
Dab hand? What is
that? Dab hand?
Dab hand.
It's informal language for a person who is an expert at a particular activity. So Unai Emery is a dab hand at football management.
I'm not putting that in a report. It'd probably be a curry. Curry with an naan bread. I don't make the sauce by myself or anything, but it's nice and fulfilling and can be nutritious. So chicken rice, curry, naan bread. Yeah, that would do.
Yeah, nice, decent. I would go for like a spaghetti bolognese kind of thing. Like what a ragu, you want to be posh about it.
Got bored of that recently. I kept doing it for like a few weeks and it was like, this is the best thing in the world. And it's decent. Like I do a good spag bowl, but I've got a packet of mince in my fridge now that's out of date for about 2 days. I'm going to have it for lunch. Ooh. But I'm not even looking forward to it because it's just...
Is this why you're always ill? Because you keep cooking things that are out of date?
No. What do you always ill? Yeah.
You're always ill because you send me a voice note going, I'm not feeling great again today.
Chicken wings before I went to Amsterdam. Oh, my days. Yeah. Ooh. Deathbed that was. But they were so good. So I kept having them. Yeah, I can't have them now. When you look at something, can you...
Oh. So is this are they pre-cooked or are they raw and you cook them?
No, they're raw. It's raw chicken. But you
surely it's not the wings that are a problem. If you bought them several times, it's that you were cooking them wrong.
No. I've cooked them for 20 minutes back and sides, like they were like crisp. I don't know. I don't know what was wrong with it, but yeah, you slap on your Cajun Nando sauce as well. All that stuff, really good. Loads of protein, all of that stuff, like banging. Bit of rice on the side, and then felt dreadful. Went to the office the next day and had a Greggs sausage roll. And now I know I was ill before the Greggs sausage roll, but now I can't have Greggs because I'm relating to eating that.
Yeah.
It's like smelling Greggs whenever I walk past it to go to the office. I can't do it now because I just feel like, I don't want to feel like that again.
Interesting chat. We've learned a bit about each other here with our cooking habits. And if this is interesting to people watching, fair play. If you turned off 15 minutes ago,
no one's watching at this point. No one's watching. If they are, they've forgot the TVs on. So turn your TV off.
Yeah, come and turn this off, please. If you are still watching and you're engaged and you're enjoying the show, then leave a comment down below with chicken wings and we'll see who actually watched right to the very end of the show. John, thank you very much for joining me on this one. I am off the entirety of next week and we will discuss that in another podcast. So it might be a little bit all over the place, our content schedule. But for this week, we will have more stuff on Claret and Blue, including Matt Kendrick's Villa voice notes on audio platforms, and a preview for Wolves on Friday, and a post-match for Wolves on Saturday evening, 5:30 kickoff. But we'll talk all about this at the end of the week. Next week might be a bit ropey, but we'll do our best. John, thanks for joining me. Thanks everyone for watching or listening, and we'll see you later in the week. Cheers, everyone.